welcome you to our webinar today, How to Build an Amazing Homeschool Transcript, with nationally known college prep expert Jean Burk, the author of College Prep Genius. Jean has helped thousands of homeschool families get ready for college in numerous articles, in TV appearances, as a keynoter at conferences, and through her company College Prep Genius, which offers her teachings on DVD. In fact, if you hang in with us through the whole webinar, I think towards the end Jean will give you a coupon code that you can use to get a discount on her DVD program. Is that right, Jean?
That is correct. Thank you, Brett.
Cool. Okay, so with no further ado, I'm going to push a button and we'll give the presentation over to Jean. So Jean, you should get a pop-up on your screen right now.
Okay, I got it. Show my screen.
And show your screen, and I'll be able to there it is. And I'm thinking probably everybody else is getting that too. A very bright red-orange, Build an Amazing Homeschool Transcript. Okay.
That'll wake you up, right?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Thanks,
it's up
Brett.
to you. Sure.
Appreciate it. Great. Well, thank you, folks, for joining. My name is Jean Burk, and I am actually in Texas. So where's everybody from? Just want to type that in there, and I don't know if I can see it on my end. If I can't,
Florida, Kansas, Georgia, Arizona, Ohio, Austin. Oh, my goodness. Everybody. It's all over.
Wow.
Illinois, Colorado, Southern California, Canada, New Jersey. I'm looking for Toronto. I'm looking for people elsewhere. Did somebody
Wonderful.
say India? Somebody said Indian.
Oh.
Anyways, it's
I
all
think
over.
great.
Near Virginia. It's everywhere.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Great
I know everybody's busy. Yeah, everybody's so busy today, but I totally appreciate you taking some time out and joining in. I appreciate it. Kind of, if you haven't ever heard me speak or seen me at a conference, let me kind of give you kind of a quick background. You know, probably about 12 years ago, you know, as a homeschooling family ourselves, we had no money for college. I mean, literally, we had zero saved up, and we really wanted our kids to go to school, and we knew how important college education was. And one of my friends mentioned to me one day that, you know, there's all this free college out there based on test scores, such as an SAT, PSAT, that sort of thing. And I was very intrigued by that. And so with my son Josh, who was my guinea pig, you know, we kind of started working on these tests, trying to find out what works and what doesn't work. And kind of a long story short, we ended up throwing away 7 trash bags full of college offers. I said 7, that's right. Full rides, free tuition, free room and board, free grad school, you know, I mean, just everything paid for. And then after my daughter got free college, my friends wanted to know what we did, and ultimately it turned into the College Prep Genius program, and we've been doing that for about 10 years, helping thousands of kids every year learn how to go to college for free. Now, some of you out there, you maybe just want to get one free offer somewhere. Well, hopefully I can help you do that today, give you enough information that can get you started. And a lot of you are probably, you know, possibly fearing high school, the high school years. Some of you might have kids already in high school, maybe halfway through, maybe you're just starting, maybe you have younger kids. But hopefully I'll give you enough information today that's going to really get you started. And as Brett was saying, at the end of the program, I'm going to give you a special for my program, first ever special. I've never had that low of a price for my program, so I'm really excited about sharing that with you. Now, I want to talk about the high school years because a lot of times, especially as homeschoolers, and some of you out there may not even be homeschooled, maybe you have kids in public or private school, and hopefully some of this stuff can help you as well. But a lot of times, homeschoolers get to the high school years, and that is when they sometimes give up, or they are, you know, afraid of what to do or what to teach, or, you know, what am I supposed to be doing with my kids? And I just want to encourage you that this is a really special time, these last 4 years for your student. I mean, this is sort of the time when, you know, you have the ability to impart in their lives before they go out into the world, be it through college or the military or a career or whatever. And I kind of have met many people over the years who really get to this point and they think they can't do it. But I'm here to tell you, if I can do it, you can do it. Let me tell you, believe me, I was pretty disorganized. And one time I added up, I think, just high school years. I think if you sent your kids to a high school, just the time frame from, let's say, getting there and getting out of school and not even counting any driving time or any extra school activities, I think it came to somewhere around 6,000 hours that your child would be away from you in school. And so this is this many hours, they're going to be learning from someone. They're going to be hearing and being influenced by someone. And I know that the main reason why you've homeschooled is so that you could be an influence in their lives. And so I want to just encourage you for these last 4 years. So I'm going to go through some notes, and I'm going to we'll give you some really good information that will help you. Now, our contact information, our website is collegeprepgenius.com, and you can, if you have any questions that we don't answer today, certainly you can email us at info@collegeprepgenius.com. Our office number is 817-282-7737. So hopefully you have that, and I think I might have it at the end as well. Now, I want to talk about planning for success. Planning the high school years out, again, whether you're just starting or maybe you're halfway through or maybe you've got a few years to go. But I think planning is very, very important. And I know that it's very important that you set goals for your high schooler. Where do you want them to be in 4 years? You sort of have the end in mind, academically, spiritually, emotionally. And of course, I'm going to talk today about how to create a high school notebook or portfolio. I'm also going to share with you how to make a great 4-year academic plan and a 4-year summer plan. And certainly start early if you can. That's ideal. But again, as homeschoolers, we're very flexible. So if you're already into high school, don't despair. You can always go back and add things in that you've already done. And of course, definitely encourage college. And I know college is not for everyone, but it's really one of those things that's really sort of a stepping stone to go on to bigger and better things. College really is a great place for your kids, for most kids, because it kind of gives them sort of that inroad, 1 foot at home and 1 foot out in the world, and it teaches them more than just learning and getting them a degree, but I think it teaches them lifelong skills to get up and set goals for that week. Mom's not going to be there to wake you up in the morning, and you've got a exam on one day, and you've got a research paper on another day, and then you've got a social event on another day, and you've got to be able to juggle all that, which is really sets you up for success when it comes to going out into the real world and when you have your career. Now, I do want to talk about goal setting, and you as a parent, knowing and identifying your students' passions, how God has made them, their talents, their skills. We're all so different, and our kids are also different. And I want to tell you what happened to me a couple years ago. I was asked to go over to China to teach my program, and so someone had said to me, before you go to China, you really need to read the book, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. Now, I don't know if you've read that book or not, but wow, it is very, very intense. The lady who wrote the book, she pretty much wanted to sort of give the comparison of Western parenting versus Chinese parenting. And so, it was a really great book because I really couldn't put it down, but I was really exhausted every time I would read it because this lady, what she would do with her kids was, they didn't have friends, the kids couldn't have a dog, they couldn't play in sports, they couldn't play in drama, they couldn't do any outside events except educational. So her kids were very much into academics during the day, but then they would have a math tutor for 2 or 3 hours, and then they would practice piano for 3 and violin for 2. And even when they went on vacation, the mom would rent pianos at hotels and make the kids practice. So she was very intense. And because sort of the mentality of what she was talking about in her book was that the parent knows everything and the kids really don't have a say, and it's whatever we want is what you're going to do, which is very different, than we in sort of the Western world, because we believe that every child is different and God has made them different, and what we want for them isn't necessarily what they're ultimately going to do. And so, but it was a really enlightening book. I really highly recommend that everybody read it. And, I used to think that I was a slave driver. But after I read that book, I said, no way. I look pretty good. So, I recommend that you get that book on tape and put it in your car and play it for your kids and they will appreciate you after listening to her. I guarantee it. So something to make you think about, you know. And then I want to talk about motivation. Motivation for your teenagers. And I know our teenagers need motivating. Some of us are motivated internally, and you know, some of us are motivated externally. But we're all made different.
Jean?
Hello? Yes.
I'm sorry. I just need to interrupt you a second. We had a number of people didn't make out the name of the book that you were recommending.
Yes, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother.
Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely a great read. And so I want to talk about motivating for your teenagers. Even though parents ask me all the time to motivate their child, I can only do so much. But you've got to find what motivates them, because they really are motivated by something. Now, you want to also familiarize yourself with your child's interests, and what makes them tick. So, for example, let's say your daughter loves horses, and you are down at the library and you see that there's going to be an equestrian show coming up. Well, this would be a good time to sign her up, because you know that she's already motivated to study horses. So be on the lookout. And then encourage your teenagers. They actually need encouragement, just like when they were young and they were 2 and 3, and we really hung their little pictures up on the refrigerator and told them how beautiful they were. But even teenagers, they spell love T-I-M-E. So encourage them, spend time with them, and help them to really know that yeah, you're a teenager and you may not know everything, even though you might think you do. We know you don't, so we want to be there for you. And then the word nurture, one of the actual definitions for nurturing is education, or educate. So we want to nurture their passions, educate them, find every opportunity we can for them, especially when they're already motivated to study that particular subject. And then ultimately you want to help your teenager broaden their interests, see the bigger picture. Your child might be saying to you, I'm considering being a doctor, and really help them see, well, okay, there's so many doctors. What are you thinking about? Maybe studying kidney disease and being a nephrologist, and studying nephrosis of the kidney. So there's so much more than just being a doctor. And one of the things that I love studying is personalities, and since every child is different, we want to find what motivates them, what is their personality. And even though personality tests are not foolproof, they can kind of help you gear your child toward a certain area. And I found some really good online. People have told me they looked for years for really a really good, solid career path or personality or motivation test. So these right here are very good. Outofservice.com, if you can see that on your screen, richardstep.com, learnmyself.com. Okay, why is it saying you would like to hide all your webcams? No, I don't know what that's saying. Sorry, I had a little button pop up. Now, when it comes to high school, this is one of the biggest fears that parents have is, how much math do they need? How much English do they need? Well, most high schools, most public high schools and private schools have what's called a 3-tier high school plan. Now, on your screen here, this is not the complete chart, but it's just a partial chart. But when it comes to high school, if you have a student who just says, I just want to get in, get out, and be done with it, I'm not going to do anything with my life, then you would obviously go the minimum route, which is about 23 credits. Recommended, again, adds in a couple AP courses, and then distinguished, certainly, I think, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're having some folks asking, could you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
And I don't know if I can type these in for folks. I'm not that fast to type.
Okay, sure.
Can you? We don't have the.
Yo, I really am for. I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna give folks a minute here. I'm putting one of those websites in here.
Sure.
Learnmyself.com, and then HTTP richardstep.com self-motivation quiz. Yes.
Hey, Brett, I really am from Texas, even though I talk fast. People People tell me
Okay.
it's like drinking from a fire hose when they come into my seminars.
Right.
So,
Well, I think I may have done a typo, but I think I got all the links in there. Okay, so sorry to interrupt.
great, great. No worries. Okay, folks, I will slow down. I promise. You're probably all going, thank you. No, when it comes to the three-tier high school plan, what I always tell families is, your goal obviously is to shoot for the distinguished program. Have your child take the most rigorous courses possible. If they don't quite make that tier, then they'll at least fall into the middle. I think one of the things that you don't want to happen is maybe your child isn't really sure what they're going to do, and maybe they might become a senior, and then they all of a sudden decide to become an engineer, and then now you have to somewhere squeeze in another math or science. So it's better to shoot for the distinguished program in the beginning if your child can handle it. And this full chart here, you can actually download it at collegeprepgenius.com/roadmap. And what it is my roadmap to success. On one side, you will have the complete three-tier high school plan. And on the other side is basically a roadmap to what your child should be doing in 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way up to 12th grade to prepare for college and to get scholarships. So collegeprepgenius.com/roadmap. Now, I want to talk about the differences between AP, dual, and CLEP classes. A lot of families don't know where to begin with these three. They don't know the difference, the advantages, the disadvantages. Should they take one or both or all three? So I'm going to kind of talk about all three so you kind of know what path might be best for your family. Now, AP courses, what these are, advanced placement tests, are created by the College Board. So the same company that writes the SAT, the PSAT, they also create the AP courses. Now, they are college-level courses, and they are generally taken in the junior and the senior year. And I say generally because there's so much extra work. Any AP class that your child takes can add anywhere from 5 to 10 hours of homework per week. So if your child already has a pretty heavy load, then you might want to, rethink about maybe some AP classes. Now, when I say generally taken in the junior and senior year, let's say your child is very proficient in a language in middle school, then they can take an AP language class, of course, in the 9th grade. So keep that in mind, just the extra work. Now, at the end of the school year, what happens is your child will take the May AP test. It's about $45, and it's generally held, somewhere in your city. And to find out where it's held, you can go to the College Board website. And what happens is the AP tests are graded on a 1 to 5. Now, 1 is obviously the worst, 5 is the best. And most schools will give your child college credit on a 3 or above. Now, that's most schools. Now, if you're going to go to more of a top-tier school, maybe even an Ivy League, probably more 4s and 5s. Now, the reason why these are very prestigious on your child's transcript is because when the colleges look at the AP scores and the AP credits, they understand that it does demonstrate a mastery of coursework. They know that your child put in all that extra time to go through the class and ultimately to take the test. It's a great way for your child to skip courses in college. Maybe they don't really like math and they're not really doing a degree that has something to do with math, and then you can skip it and you don't have to do it in college. It's a great way also if your child maybe is going to take on a 2nd degree or 3rd degree. If they've skipped some classes, that frees up a lot of time. Or some kids just want to graduate early, and of course getting all that college credit hours ahead of time can make a difference.
Jean, I'm sorry,
Now,
can I interrupt? Jean, can I
yes.
interrupt just 1 second? We had a comment from Heidi. It was very helpful, and I think everybody would appreciate this. I put it out in the chat, but and I should have said this earlier. In the upper right corner of your screen, folks, there is a little icon of a camera, and what that will do is take a screen capture of your slide.
Oh, great.
And so if you're desperately trying to write down notes or something, don't worry. You can just, is that okay, Jean, if they take?
Oh, absolutely.
I should have asked that before. Okay, just so we want folks to know that they can quickly do screen capture.
That's a really good hint. That's a great hint. I didn't even know that either.
Yeah, sure is. Thank you, Heidi.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks, Heidi. All right, and now, as a homeschooler, there are actually 3 ways your child can take AP courses. Certainly, you can go to the store, go to a bookstore, buy one, and study on your own and do all the follow-up homework if you understand how to do it. There's also internet AP courses that you can find online. And now, when you are looking online, be very, very careful because a lot of them can be very pricey. So you definitely want to do your homework. Or you could do kind of what we did, which is we had an outside AP teacher. There's a lady here in Fort Worth, Melody Lambert, and she's a certified AP teacher. She has taught in public schools, private schools, and just really loved the homeschoolers. And so she's been teaching out of our home for years, and she always has a long waiting line. So that's the way we did it. But even homeschoolers can also get that AP credit. So don't feel like just because you're not necessarily in a school system that you can't do that. So, and when it comes to AP courses, again, because there's a lot of extra homework, I would not take on more than a couple AP courses per year. 3 at the most, unless your child, they can handle it, but they are a lot tougher. But they are very prestigious to have on your transcript. And pretty much most colleges are going to accept AP courses. Now, I want to talk about dual credit. Maybe in some of your states it's called early enrollment. But this is where your child is enrolled in both high school and credit at the same time. And so they're obviously going to earn credit simultaneously for both high school and, of course, for the college as well. Now, one of the things that you've got to understand about dual credit is that the college credit may or may not transfer. Sometimes what colleges do with the dual credit is they'll use it more as an honors class. Or maybe sometimes what they'll do is they'll use it more for internal placement for their own school. Now, before you spend a lot of money and a lot of time that, can be very frustrating, here are a couple websites to find out, if that college credit will transfer. And you can go to collegetransfer.net or transfer.org. And that can save you a lot of hassle because you'd hate for your child to do a lot of dual credit and get ready to transfer over, and then it doesn't, it didn't do them any good. So check that out first. Now again, dual credit or early enrollment can be generally taken in the junior and the senior year. Again, often younger students can do it as well. Usually you have to get permission when it comes to dual credit. Now for your child to apply for dual credit, generally they're going to fill out an application at the college, and this is usually most junior colleges or community colleges that hold the dual credit programs.
Okay,
and there's still, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have this little, I'm getting lots of helpful information from some folks in the audience. Apparently that camera that we're all seeing is actually a feature of your screen, not everybody who's watching.
Oh, okay.
So I hadn't seen that before, and so I thought maybe it had always been there, but I just apologize to everybody for that. Okay, I want to.
No worries. Actually, at the end, I will tell you how to download all the notes. So don't worry. If you're writing and your hand's cramping, don't stress too much about it, because at the very end, I'm going to give you the website to get all the notes.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
That will help you out. No problem. No problem at all. I'll be glad to do that. Now, when your child, does the dual credit program or the early enrollment, what you're going to find out, they're still going to have to take a test. They're not going to be able to get out of a test, so they're still going to take a test like the SAT, the ACT, maybe even an AccuPlacer or a placement test. So, again, that has to happen no matter what. You have to take the test, and then when it comes to the cost of the dual credit, it can definitely vary. A lot of schools, it's very nominal. Sometimes there's even tuition assistance, and in many cases there's no charge. I know that when my kids were in high school here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the junior college near our home gave all homeschoolers free dual credit. So just check in your area, just check with the schools, and just see what might apply for you and for your family. Now I want to talk about the CLEP. CLEP actually stands for College Level Examination Program. And again, the CLEP tests are still written by the College Board. Now what this is where your child will earn college credit by taking qualified tests. Now each one will correspond to a one-semester class. And then when your child does go and take the test, they're about 90 minutes long. And of course, know that there are 2 fees to take the test. You're going to pay a fee for the test, but then you're also going to pay a fee for the testing center. And CLEP tests can be taken at any age, unlike the dual and the AP, which are generally in the junior and the senior year. Now again, there's a lot of advantages to CLEPing, just like getting the other college hours. Certainly, again, you can take fewer classes, skipping what you know, saving money. When you don't have to take those classes in college, certainly you now don't have to pay for them. And also what I think CLEP is a great thing is for us adults. It's a great way to finish your degree. Sometimes we as adults, get some college under our belt and life happens and you get married and have kids and you start homeschooling or you have a job and you don't really get the chance to finish that degree. So CLEPing is a great way to do that. So very, very important to understand that if your child is going to get college credit, that of course there's certainly advantages, but there is also a disadvantage of getting too many college credits. And whether it's through CLEP, through AP, through dual credit, and that is if your child gets too many college credits, what happens is they become known as a transfer student and no longer an incoming freshman. So this can nullify a lot of scholarships. So be very aware of that. So if your route is a 4-year university where your child will be, wanting to get a scholarship, you need to think about that before you, get 40, 50, 60 credits, which I've known people to do that and they didn't realize that this was what happens. And I get asked all the time, well, how many credits is too many? And again, that varies because every college is different. One college that your child might go to might say 15 credits is too many. One might say 20. So if you have a college in mind, definitely contact them and find out so that you don't, get down the road and then just be disappointed when it comes to applying for scholarships. Now, I want to talk about well-rounded versus angular. You may have heard this when it comes to college. You'll hear this from admissions counselors. And the difference basically is angular basically means your child is really good at one thing. They've really focused all their life. They've perfected something. They've been dedicated to completing the task of whatever it is. Let's say your child started playing golf as a young 2 or 3-year-old and really excelled and through the years has played a lot of championships and won a lot of tournaments and really, that's all they've ever done. That is called angular. Well-rounded basically means your child does well in a lot of different areas. And, Harvard is the #1 university in America. And, when my son got invited to go to Harvard, what they said to us is we are looking for well-rounded students. This is our criterion when it comes to applicants. And I know that not everybody out there wants their child to go to Harvard, but I use them as the example because if they're the #1 university, then let's take what they want and apply that same information to all the other colleges. And so what does that mean? What is Harvard looking for? Well, when they're looking at a child as well-rounded, what they want to do is they want to look at their academics, the high school classes that they took, were they hard, were they easy, did they just kind of do the minimum? What kind of community service have they been involved in? Did they volunteer? Were they an asset to the people around them? How about extracurricular activities? Did they take dance or have a part-time job, debate club? What were they doing outside of school? And what kind of awards and achievements or honors did they rack up during those years? Which is a demonstration of, excelling in certain areas. And of course, ultimately, they're going to want to know their test scores. That's the main thing that they look at. And, having done this for 10 years, it still amazes me to this day that the #1 thing that colleges, not just Harvard, but colleges look at is your child's SAT score. For basically, the main reason is a 4.0 at one high school is not the same 4.0 at another high school. You know, every school weighs and calculates their scores differently. So the only way to compare a homeschool child versus someone in a public school or private school, someone who lives in Texas or Indiana or Kentucky or Florida, the only way to do that is to level the playing field by using one test, one standardized test like an SAT. So that's why it's very important. And a little known fact, colleges go up on their rankings nationally based on their test scores. So the higher the score, the more money they give you because basically you make them look good. I mean, we not only threw away 7 trash bags of college offers, but it included full ride, free tuition, room and board, grad school money. Everything was paid for. So very, very important to realize that comes, the bottom line, that comes down to the test score. Now, I do want to talk about community service, and I don't know if your child has been doing some volunteer work, but it's very, very important to start incorporating it somehow into your school, into your child's week or month, because if your child does not volunteer, what's going to happen is they are going to pale in comparison to all those kids out there who do volunteer. So whether your child is doing something like Habitat for Humanity, Meals on Wheels, or playing for the nursing home, their band, whatever it is, you want to keep a record of it. So what I recommend is to create a spreadsheet. And now on the spreadsheet, what you want to do is you want to make note of where your child volunteered, how many hours they worked, who their supervisor was, and all letter of recommendation from that particular place and on their letterhead. Make sure that's very, very important. And then what a lot of people don't know is many places that you volunteer, they will actually count driving time as volunteer hours. So in other words, if your child volunteers, let's say at the hospital, 30 minutes back home, then they can count that hour as volunteer work. So that happens in many, many cases. Now, I'm going to put a few websites.
I'm sorry.
They don't know where it started.
Jean, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but can you hear me? Yeah, we're having audio problems now. So I think we need to go to Plan B.
Okay.
Where you call in from a landline.
Okay. Plan B.
Yeah, remember, just click that little circle next to the telephone.
Okay. Let me do that. Okay, I'm going to have to minimize my my PowerPoint. It's going to be a little under. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. Jean and I had discussed the possibility that if the audio got bad from her using the computer mic, that we should shift to an actual telephone.
Okay.
So we're just going to take a minute here to have Jean call into the conference on a phone. Actually, I think she'll be off. While we're waiting for Jean to come back in, I've had lots of comments on the camera. I haven't been able to sort it all out, but it appears that the camera is on. Many of you do have the camera, and many of you do not. So I guess it depends on your browser, your computer, your operating system. I don't really know. Actually, this is a good place for her to stop, as Esteri points out, because, I'm sorry, is...
Yes. All right, I'm here. How's that?
Oh, excellent.
All right, we'll do it by phone then. That'll work out great.
Okay, it sounds a little more distant, but it's not breaking up.
Okay, should I take it off my here? 1 second. I can take it off speaker and just do it. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Say something else.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, it is.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thanks. I'll be quiet.
No problem. Sorry, y'all. Okay. All right. So now, back to community service. Were they able to hear most of this, or do I need to repeat this?
I think you should start with this slide again.
Okay. For those of you who didn't get a chance to hear that, I wanted to talk about the community service for your child. Definitely very, very important that your child is doing community service. And I said earlier, if they're not doing any kind of volunteer work or community service, what happens is they're going to pale in comparison to all those kids who do. And so they really do look at that. These admissions counselors look at this very, very, very closely. So when your child is volunteering, you definitely want to create a spreadsheet. You can just do Excel or Word, and you want to make a note of where your child volunteered, the location, how many hours they actually worked there, who the supervisor was, of course, our contact information, and of course, certainly definitely get a letter of recommendation for every place that your child volunteers on their letterhead. And many times, many places will allow your child to count driving time as volunteer work. And that means, so if they're driving 30 minutes to volunteer and then driving 30 minutes back home, then the hour can be counted in. So here are some websites. Maybe you don't know where to start when it comes to volunteering. Here are a few websites that can hopefully get you started. DoSomething.org, volunteermatch.org, house.gov, jhu.edu, and then cogito.org. So again, don't worry if you're taking notes and you end up, missing something or writing down the wrong website or incomplete website. I'm going to show you at the end, how you can actually download these notes. Now, when it does come to volunteering, I do want to encourage you to make sure that your child demonstrates commitment, they're passionate about what they're volunteering, and they're dedicated, because these admissions counselors are they're not dumb by any means. They know that there are students who just pad their applications with some volunteer work, an hour here and an hour there. You really want to demonstrate this. So, for example, maybe your child volunteers every Tuesday after school, at the animal shelter, and they've been doing that for the last 6 months. That shows real commitment there. Maybe every summer they go on a mission trip and they, help build houses for the poor. That's a real dedication to take out your summer and do that. So you really want to put that kind of stuff on their transcript and in their portfolio, because they really are looking for students. They know that kids just, spend time, try to make their application look good, but to see a student who's been very, very consistent over a long period of time is really more appealing to these admissions counselors. Now, when it comes to community service and volunteer, there are things like volunteer vacations, like Global Works, where your child can get involved in. There's a lot of programs that actually allow your family to volunteer. And again, I've got Clean Up the World, the UN Environmental Program, and then even there are homeless shelter directories that you can find them all across the United States, where your families can all go down there and help out in some sort of way. But one of the great things is there are a lot of scholarships available for students who volunteer, not only volunteer before college and can receive scholarships, but even those who continue volunteering throughout college. And one of the things that I loved about my kids volunteering, not just the fact that it really blessed so many people, but it really changed their lives, because it really sets up a totally different mentality for your child, and it sees that, it's not all about them. So many times I find students who have such an entitlement attitude, and when you're volunteering and you're seeing the needs in the community, and there's so many out there, it really shows you that, you're very blessed. But it also sets up, I think, a lifetime of character change. And I'll give you an example. I remember my son, when he got to college, he became a big brother. And he had a little boy that every week he took him somewhere, and I think he had a couple of boys, but he did something for them, and he always brought them back to the campus, and they had a lot of fun. And this was a young man who was, from a single mom, and so it made a huge difference in his life. And then after he graduated college, he went on to California, and he started volunteering in this community and working at a homeless shelter, and then he started mentoring young boys, and it really gave him a desire to work more in social service, and so he ultimately went to law school, and I think that's going to work more in the social justice area. So it does really make a huge difference. And my daughter, volunteering all through college and now working for the FBI, really gave her a sense to really want to help people. So it does more, sometimes it does more for the students than it does even for those who are helping. So I do encourage you to get your kids involved in community service. Now, one of the coolest things that you'll ever learn about is what's called the Congressional Award. This is one of those things that is so impressive, but very few people ever apply for it. It's kind of like being an Eagle Scout. Only 2% of Boy Scouts become Eagle Scouts. So it's very, very prestigious. And it's the same thing with this. When an admissions counselor sees this, it can be life-changing, because what happens is your child will set goals in 4 areas: personal development, physical fitness, exploration, and of course volunteer and community service. Now, keep in mind that you want to sign up for this as soon as you can, because any volunteer work that has been done before you sign up does not count. And what happens is your child, once they complete the task, they will be invited to go to Washington to receive, the highest level award is called the Gold Medal Award, and they will receive it from Congress. And again, one of those things that very few people ever apply for. And now you as a parent will not be the one who oversees their goals. It will be somebody outside of your family, which is nice because it keeps it very unbiased. Now, you can start as early as age 14. And of course, if you have older students, they can still accomplish it as old as 23. Now, the website is congressionalaward.org. And so I definitely really encourage you to check this out, because again, it's one of those things that very few people ever put on their transcript. But it's a really cool thing, and very life-changing too, because the kids have to do all the work, and they're the ones setting the goals, and they're the ones who actually have to accomplish them to be able to receive the highest award, any level award, but especially the Gold Medal Award. Now, I do want to talk about important test score information, keeping records for your child, especially homeschoolers. Schools put such an emphasis on the test records of your child, because as you know, they don't know whether we made that stuff up on our transcript or not. So ultimately, it comes down to what is your test score. So I recommend certainly start early teaching your kids test prep. 9th grade, if possible. I mean, I teach a lot of 6th graders as well, and if your child's older than 9th grade, they can still do very well. I mean, I've had kids go up 300 points. But very, very important, because if your child is planning on going to college and getting in scholarship money, it really does come down to that test score. And so certainly you definitely want to keep a record of their improvement, kind of give them a baseline score where they start. And then, of course, you can see their improvement over time. And, of course, you can incorporate into your school, because you can create test prep as an elective as well. Now, when it comes to taking tests, because I've done this for so long, the great thing is your child can take the SAT as many times as they want. There are no penalties, and they can just keep taking it until you get the desired score. It's offered 7 times a year. Now, keep in mind that one of the good reasons why to take it more than once is because most colleges will do what's called a super score, and this is where, let's say, your child takes the SAT one time and gets a really good math score, and they take the test another time and they get a really good critical reading score. Well, what the colleges will do is they'll take the highest scores from different tests, which is ultimately called a super score. And certainly it means more money for you. And the reason why you can start taking it early is because you don't have to send the scores to any colleges if you don't want to. You have what's called the score choice, which allows you to send them whenever you want. And, of course, once your child has got the score they want, add that best test score to the transcript. Certainly, it's going to help them get into college, of course, get the scholarship money, but ultimately what it does, it adds credibility for your homeschooler. Now, it validates their transcript. Now, I know as a homeschooling mom, we don't need any validation from anybody. Believe me, I get that. But unfortunately, that's what they look at. So it's very, very important. And the thing is, I've been teaching test prep for 10 years, and it is a learnable test. anybody can do well. Anybody can beat this test because really it's just a game. It's a logic test. It's really not about how smart your child is. And I say that because I've had many valedictorians that have bombed the test, have come to my program. And the reason why most kids don't do well is because the questions are very misleading and they look very subjective, and the wrong answers look so appealing. But once a student learns that really it's understanding the recurring patterns that the College Board uses, that you really can do this. You can run this test. And of course, there's only one right answer. Very objective, not subjective. So, again, kids can raise their scores hundreds of points once they learn how to take the actual test and not follow, the normal test taking that they've learned in school. Now, when it comes to test taking, obviously there is the SAT and the ACT, and a lot of people want to know which one do you take or which school takes which one. Well, 100% of every college takes either one, so it does not matter which one your child takes. Used to, it made a difference depending on what school you're going to go to, but now it does not matter. And of course, both the ACT and the SAT are used to get into college and, of course, to get scholarship money. Now, they're different in the fact, like I said, the SAT is more of a logic, critical thinking-based test, and the ACT is more of a content-based test. So in other words, there is trigonometry on the ACT, and there's some science, but there is also some critical thinking. So I've got a lot of students who've got perfect ACT scores as well. But again, it does not matter because every college takes either one, and if they prefer one over the other, what the college will do is they'll convert the score. So in other words, if your child got an SAT score of 1,300, that's the same as an ACT score of 29, or vice versa. So again, it does not matter which one your child takes, or try them both. Now, and certainly you want to keep a record of your child's scores, just so you can create a spreadsheet that kind of gives you an idea of how much they've improved. Now, I do recommend that when you're creating your child's high school portfolio, it would be a good idea to keep a record of the curriculum used. Again, a spreadsheet will work fine. Just keeping a track of the class name and the book they've used and the author and the details. Probably most college admissions counselors won't ask them about it, but just in case they do, it's a good idea to have these written down. If they say, well, what kind of English did you take in 10th grade or history or whatever, and you can have that recorded. And there are some people who do ask for it. Probably most do not. But it's better to be prepared. I'm such a big believer in having more than less, because it can ultimately pay off. Now, when it comes to your child's transcript, you can create something really kind of fancy like this right here. It's on your screen. Or, we personally, all we did was just type it up on our computer. And there's a lot of great programs out there now that you can they'll kind of generate a transcript so that you can, just input your information. But however you choose to do it, when it comes to putting together your child's transcript, I think the most important thing to remember is, there's some things that you must include or you must put on your transcript. And I think what people really understand is you have to type it. Very, very important. If you have a kind of a ready-made one that that you can actually fill in, you can go down to the library and there's a thing called a typewriter, and you can actually borrow that. So that works really nice. And certainly, when it comes to creating a transcript, you really do not want more than 2 pages. Anything outside the 2 pages or any extra stuff can go into their notebook or their portfolio. But colleges get so many transcripts a day, and they probably will lose half your stuff. So just send them just a 2-page transcript and no bigger than that. And when it comes to, as you're filling out the transcript, make sure that you complete it in full. And so if there's something that does not apply to your child, just put in A, not applicable. You don't want them to think that it's incomplete or that you missed something. So that's very, very important. And certainly you want to specify course title. And again, that's, be more specific. For example, if your child took 10th grade history, you might be more specific and say, 16th century medieval history or whatever. So be more specific. And certainly, of course, like I said earlier, include the best test scores. And then do note if it is state course equivalent. I know that here in Texas everybody has to take Texas history. So, again, very required subject. So make sure you notate that this is equivalent to any Texas history class that will be offered at any public or private school. And, as a homeschooler, make sure you add that graduation date. You may not know what day they're going to graduate, but just, when you send in your transcripts into the admissions counselors, you tend to do it in the first semester of the senior year. So you may not even know the graduation date, but a good homeschooling date is something like May 25th. No, just put some kind of date in there, and don't worry, they're not going to come down and make sure your child is graduating that day. So just a good date in there. And, of course, certainly you want to have it signed and notarized. Make it look official. Make them think we know what we're talking about, even though we do. So, again, very important as you're still writing these, type it no more than 2 pages, complete it in full, specify the course title or be more specific, include the best test scores, notate if it's state course equivalent, add some sort of graduation date in there, and certainly sign and have it notarized. And again, if you miss any notes, I'll show you how to download them in the end. Now, I want to talk about a little known secret called talent searches. Now, if you have younger students going into the 7th grade, there are actually programs by the 5 top talent searches: Johns Hopkins, the Duke Talent, Northwestern, University of Denver, and Stanford. Now, I'll leave those up there so you can write those down. Now, what these are where your child, if they qualify at the end of the 6th grade year, they can actually take the SAT as a 7th grader. And that's the same SAT that the high schoolers take. And this would be in December or January of their 7th grade year. Now, what happens is if your child qualifies and takes this SAT and they get a certain score, which is not really high, it's not like 800, I think it's around a 500 math or 500 critical reading, then they will be given a big award ceremony. They will get their name in the paper. They can be state recognized, and they can start getting some scholarship offers in 7th grade. Now, again, it's one of those things, again, that is very prestigious on your child's transcript. And, of course, the sad thing is most people are not going to tell you about these programs. Most schools don't even tell the kids about them. And oftentimes, if you have a friend or that you know that has their child has participated, probably won't even tell you about them. And that's what I do. I love telling you about things that are out there. And when these admissions counselors notice that your child has received one of these talent searches, one of these awards, what it does, it shows that they were focused and mature at a young age. And so, again, they're going to covet those kids because those are the ones that they know are going to be the kids that are successful in college. And, the thing is, when it comes to college, there's such a low graduation rate. And so these admissions counselors are looking for things that can clue them in on your child being the one who's going to be successful in college. And, for example, and the cool thing about these talent searches is your child can qualify in a lot of different ways. And, usually they can qualify through the Iowa or the Stanford, one of those ways, or even you as a parent can nominate your own child. For example, if you wanted to nominate your child for the Duke tip letter, you could go to that website, tip.duke.edu/NODE/539. And then there's another site at the Duke website that shows you all the different ways your child can qualify besides the Iowa and the Stanford. So definitely something to check into because, again, you want your child to be able to have those opportunities that maybe somebody is not going to tell you about. And we have all this, too, in my High School Prep Genius book as well that we have it on my website. But hopefully this again, I'll give you the notes to all these so that you have them. Now, I want to talk about the 4-year summer plan when it comes to your child, when you're doing the transcript and you're doing your child's portfolio. This is where, nowhere in our life, maybe outside of retirement, do we have these blocks of time that we have that we can kind of do whatever we want. And, of course, a 4-year summer plan ideally would start the summer before the 9th grade year. Again, if you have kids already in high school, then, of course, you can jump on in there, so it's okay. Again, this is one of those things admissions counselors often want to know about what your child did during their summertime. Did they just, lay around the house and play video games, or were they out gaining the edge? I think it's such a standout opportunity, and there's so many things out there that exist. Most kids, don't even know about, or they just want to spend their summer just kind of chilling and not doing anything. But this would actually help fire them up for the school year. Now, one of the things that your child can do during the summer is they can attend multiple campus programs. And when I say multiple campus, I mean like maybe your child plans on going to a certain school, but yet there are other schools that also offer some programs. Don't just go to the one that they're thinking about going to. Go to different ones. A lot of these admissions counselors are not impressed by very expensive camps. They really want to see more of the summer programs and the labs that in many cases are free or very, very inexpensive. And it's also a great time this summer for your child to, to basically get involved in some goal-related jobs or internships. And, it's a time to kind of read out some things. And I'll give you a story about my cousin. He always wanted to be a doctor, particularly a pediatrician, because he really loved kids. And so he went through college and he went through med school, and he started interning, and he got to realizing that, he loved kids, but he didn't really like sick kids. And so he realized that maybe a pediatrician wasn't the route to go to, and, ultimately he just became a family practitioner. So the summertime is a great way to find out. Your child might love animals and want to be a veterinarian, but then when they start kind of spending time with the sick ones, they might not like it so much. So better just find that out early than to go to school and to, waste a lot of time and money. The summertime is also a great time to add in some enriching activities that can be very valuable and very exciting experience for your child. Doing maybe some independent studies, like writing that novel or, creating a documentary, maybe even choreographing a dance and putting on some kind of performance at the end of the summer. They can also take some unaccredited classes, like, music conservatories or an online writing academy. But the summertime really is a great time for your child to experience some things that most students aren't doing. Most students, are spending their summer, just kind of relaxing. And it doesn't mean that your child has to spend the whole entire summer academically. Of course not. Because downtime is very important, devoting a few weeks toward family and personal time, setting limits, breaks and, lunch and dinner. Your kids will certainly need to respect family time. If you're going on vacation, they need to go. They can't stay being consumed by their programs that they're involved in. So they really need to just be kids as well, because they still need to grow up and have fun as well. So it's not all about academics, but it is a time that they can gain that edge. Now, I want to talk about something really cool, and it's called the Common Application. The Common Application, and you can find this at www.commonapp.org. And I highly recommend that you download this application, hopefully somewhere early when high school begins or halfway through high school, and fill it out, but don't send it anywhere. This will give you the opportunity to find if there are any gaps in your child's transcripts. It's better to find them out now. You don't want to get to the end of the senior year and realize, well, we need another foreign language, another science. So this is a great way to do that. Keep it as a reference, and just make sure that you notate whatever it is that you're missing, so that somehow along the high school journey you can add that in. So commonapp.org. Now, I want to talk about your child's notebook or their portfolio. This is where you're going to take their high school life and put it together. This is, all the letters of recommendation that they have received in, in their volunteer work, maybe outside classes, maybe their pastor, maybe the boss of their job. Just get them to get a letter of recommendation. Keep those in there in the portfolio. Record their extracurricular activities, their honors, anything that they have achieved. Make a note of that. Certainly their community service record that we talked about earlier. Put that in there so that you have a complete list of what they've been doing with their life. The 4-year summer plan, the 4-year academic plan. Put that in there. And of course, also put a copy of their transcript with the best test scores. Even though you may send your child's transcript into that college, when you go to interview, for example, don't just assume that admissions counselor has a copy of it with them, in front of them. Many times they don't. So it's better to have another copy with you. Anything that you sent, again, make sure you take that in with you. And the reason why this portfolio is so important is because these admissions counselors who will be interviewing your child do not have a crystal ball. They can't see the future. They don't know if your child is going to be successful and graduate college. All they can do is see the past. And that when they see that your child has been really busy, has maintained a good GPA, a good test score, and also has been involved with leadership skills and community service, then that is the child that they want to offer scholarships to, because they know that by the end of the freshman year, 25% of students have dropped out of college. By the end of the sophomore year, 50% have dropped out. Probably only about 1/3 of all college students will graduate. So there's a lot of students who will not finish college. And so this is a great way for the admissions counselor to know that your child will be the one that will be successful and will ultimately go on to represent their school and then ultimately become a supporting alumni. So that's why this portfolio is so important. Now, kind of want to sum up everything, giving you a few extra ideas to help enhance your child's transcript, portfolio, things that they're interested in. Just, again, record these. Any local classes that they've been involved in, make a note of that, put that in their portfolio. Any memberships for any associations or clubs, again, make copies of their membership and put that in there. Any computer lessons or anything that maybe would help enhance their degree, notate that. Documentaries. I know that I knew a young man that wanted to be a history teacher, and he spent one summer watching every imaginable film there was about World War II and World War I, and he just was so knowledgeable. And so when he wanted to go interview for college, he was able to spout off some amazing facts, and it was very, very impressive. Any kind of software, again, that is going to show that they have increased their learning. Any workshops, residential summer programs, things like that. Now, if your child is planning on possibly getting a music scholarship, maybe they sing or they dance, I really highly recommend that you create an informational video or DVD, maybe 10, 12 minutes of different performances that they've been involved in. And when you go into interview, take that in there and give that to the admissions counselor so they can watch that. Now, also put that same DVD on a YouTube link, because sometimes the admissions counselors may not have access to play the DVD, but they do have access to the internet. And the same thing if your child is planning on getting a sports scholarship. Again, make a video of them, different championships, different games, highlighting some of their abilities, and of course put it on a YouTube link, and that way you can hand it to them. So many times these recruiters do not get out to certain cities when they're scouting for students, for athletes, and so you have to kind of bring it to them. And again, it shows that you're very prepared. Any media coverage that your child has received, believe it or not, when you've been on TV, your credibility goes up 7 times. Now, not that everything on TV is credible, because it's not, but, record that. Any AP classes, any nominations, scholarships, awards that your child has received. Now, one of the things, too, you can do is if make copies of, certain awards. But if there are certain awards that you can't make a copy of, I highly recommend that you take a picture of it and then put it in, push into the portfolio so that you have it. Honor societies, who's who among American high schoolers, the National Honor Society. And if there's not a homeschool honor society in your area, you can actually start your own chapter. So you may want to check into that because there are several different programs that they can get involved in. Maybe your child is passionate about something that's really near and dear to them, and they've created a blog and they've started that. Again, make note of all these things and add them to your portfolio. If they've entered competitions, maybe they're an inventor and they've created some kind of prototype. Take that with you to the audition. Take that with you to the interview. Any auditions, make note of those. Any fundraisers. So these are some things that, again, you want to make. More is better when it comes to their portfolio. You want to show that your child is well-rounded and that they have been very, very involved, and of course that they have maintained a good GPA as well as have a good test score. And again, you're showing that your child can handle the workload. I think the reason why most students drop out of college is there's two main reasons, and one is the workload, because they can't handle. Once you get out of college, you can probably add somewhere 4 or 5 hours of studying per class per day. So if they breeze into high school, that's going to be very difficult for them. And of course, the other reason why students drop out is, of course, the finances. Now, I want to talk about, the test scores, adding credibility to your homeschool transcript. It ultimately comes down to that test score. They really, bottom line, want to see what is their SAT score, because it does validate everything else that you've done, and that's how they go up in their rankings. So I really want to encourage you that this test is a learnable test. It really does cost the College Board $625,000 just to create one test, because they make it very standardized, and they make it to where it is a learnable test, and it can be figured out. And so when I started out, 10, 12 years ago, my son, and after we got so many college offers, and my son and my daughter, and I started my program, I realized that I wanted to make this information available to most, to just about everybody. The best tool available to get free college, because obviously, the average college cost is somewhere around $80,000, $90,000, and that's sort of a mid-range price, because you could get $200,000 or even a state school that's less. So I wanted to be able to do that. So I started teaching my program, and I started out in my home, then I went to schools, and then I went to different cities, different states. Then I started speaking, and then I started going to, China, and now, it's been such an amazing ride, because we are nobody, and I've been able to help thousands of people learn how to get free college a year for the last 10 years. So I created a program on how for your child to be able to do this, which you can incorporate into your classroom and call it an elective. Even Kathy Duffy has reviewed our programs as well and given us great reviews. You can read her reviews in its entirety on her website. And so I wanted to create a special to where your child could learn how to ace this test too, how to get free college like we did. And I know the hype about all the SAT changes coming up. I want you not to fear about that. You may have some questions about the changes. Just know that for the most part, they're really dumbing the test down, and I have addressed all that on my website. So if you want to know more about the changes to the SAT, you can go to collegeprepgenius.com/SAT changes. And hopefully that will encourage you that not only do we overprepare you, but unfortunately they're really just kind of dumbing it down. And I want you to know that it's not. First of all, it's not for 2 years, so don't worry about that. Now, so when Brett first contacted me, I wanted to be able to give his buyers a special for the buyers co-op, and I said, well, let's do something really special. And so I want to show them how many of my students have raised their SAT score 600 points. So I have my whole entire DVD program, my DVD set. We have it. It's normally $99, And so what we're doing today, if you will use the code BUYER20, B-U-Y-E-R 20, you can get the whole entire program for $79. That is the textbook, the workbook, and the 4 discs. That's where I am going to teach your kids shortcuts, strategies. Every question can be answered in 30 seconds or less, even though they only give you about a minute per question. Most students can't finish it on time. So I'm going to go through that, the workbook, they'll work the problems, and then they have downloadable homework that's totally free that reinforces what they've learned. So today only, if you go to my website, collegeprepgenius.com, and you use the code BUYER20, you can actually get the whole program for $79. And of course, my website is collegeprepgenius.com. And when you click onto the DVD set, and the checkout, it says use code BUYER20 to get this special. And so hopefully that will help you. And now, I know I talked a little fast, and I apologize, but I do like to get a lot of information in a short amount of time. So if you missed any notes at all or any websites, I want you to go to collegeprepgenius.com/transcript. So I'm sure Brett's probably putting that in there, but very simple, my website/transcript. And that will give you the notes that we had today. That will also give you any of those links or websites that I had up there. So hopefully, you didn't miss something crucial that would be relevant to your family. So I appreciate it. I'm so excited about taking questions from y'all. Again, if I don't answer all your questions, certainly you can email us at info@collegeprepgenius.com, or you can call our office, 817-282-7737. Thank you so much. And now I'm ready to take your questions.
Outstanding, Jean. Thank you so much. That was really informative. I wish I had it 4 years ago.
Oh, thanks, Brett.
But anyway, I think everybody is really appreciative. I also want to thank you so much for the nice discount for our co-op, Homeschool Buyers Co-op members. That's very generous of you. We greatly appreciate it. So I did, towards the end, we had a bunch of people asking about the SAT, and you did the new SAT. And yes. I think you answered that by referring people to www.collegeprepgenius.com/SAT changes. Did I get that right? Okay.
That is correct.
So I won't, unless there's anything else you want to say about that, we'll just consider that question answered.
Right. Absolutely. And it's all on there. And the thing is, I think people don't realize it is 2 years from now. So nothing to worry about anytime soon. And we will, any changes that would be appropriate, we will implement them into our program.
Okay. Right. So I'm sure, like any test, you'll be able to prep for it because it will be a formula. Yeah.
Well, it has to be. It has to be because it has to be a test that anybody, whether you're homeschool, public school, private school, can figure out. Otherwise, it will be considered more of an elitist test, and it can't be geared toward a certain group of people. So that's why I tell people, don't worry. It's going to be, you have nothing to worry about.
Okay. Now I'm going to go back because I promised people we would take the questions in the order that they were sent in, and so we had some folks submitted questions at the top of the hour. Can you leave your? Let's see, what could we leave up there that would be good? Maybe just the last. Let's leave that slide up. Would that be okay?
That is great.
Good. Okay. So. So I'm going to go back and, so Chantal had a question, is participating in CIF mandatory or highly helpful to be considered for a scholarship?
CIF.
CIF, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
I think this was back to when you were talking about CLEP and some of the stuff in the beginning. Okay, we'll skip over that.
Not what CIF is, but maybe they can clarify and we'll come back to that. But I will tell you this, no, AP courses, if it has to do with AP and all that, no, those are not mandatory for scholarships. Those AP, CLEP, and Jewel are only used to receive some college credit before you enter college.
Okay, so that just cuts down on your cost of college if the college is accepting that credit. Okay.
And saves time.
Right. Rachel asked, do you have a sample of an amazing transcript that folks could see or have?
Yes, if you can go, let's see, the one that I showed up there.
Yeah, you showed one in a slide.
Oh, okay, one that's already filled out?
Yeah, one that's already filled out. I think that's what you meant.
You know, I do in my High School Prep Genius book, but I don't have one on, actually, that you can just go to. That's a very good question. Let me make myself a note here. Show an amazing homeschool transcript.
Right.
I love that idea. You know what I'll do is if you will email me personally, I will make a copy of the one I have. I do have one in my book. I just didn't have it up here on the slide. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add that to my PowerPoint for my future speeches. But if you will email me, Jean@collegeprepgenius.com, then I will send you one that I already have in my book.
Okay, great. And if I may, I'd just like to make a quick plug for the co-op's planner, which is called Homeschool Planet. And I'm making the plug because if you use Homeschool Planet to schedule your homeschool classes and assignments and do grading and scorekeeping and so on, Homeschool Planet will automatically create a transcript for you that looks very much like the one Jean had in her PowerPoint. So you can find out about Homeschool Planet on the co-op website. Let's move on. Let's see. Okay, Missy says, my husband seems to believe that the only truly important factor in our child's successful acceptance into college is the ACT score. What evidence can you share that will change his view?
Okay. You mean as opposed to the SAT?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, probably about 20 years ago, it did make a difference on which test you took depending on where you were going to go to school. So he may be thinking from a long time ago, because if you were going to go to school up north, ACT, they preferred the ACT. West or East Coast or down south, it was more the SAT. But now every single college takes either one. The reason why it's good to give kids both options is because the ACT is very content heavy. So it does have the trigonometry on it and science, and some kids are just not good in that. SAT is more logic-based. But one of the reasons why I always, you know, and again, you can try them both. I think it's great. But a lot of places will only emphasize the ACT, and what happens is when they do that, they nullify the PSAT. And, you know, I do a whole seminar on the secrets of the PSAT. And when we threw away 7 trash bags full of college offers, it was because of my son's PSAT score. And that was, everything was paid for. Millions of dollars of offers came in my mailbox. So it's such an amazing, amazing test. It's a life-changing test. And so the schools that only promote the ACT, the high schools, what they're missing out is that missing link of the PSAT. And I would tell her husband, go to the local guidance counselor's office, you know, at a high school nearby, and just pick up both an ACT and an SAT booklet. They're free. And have their child, you know, try them both and see how well they do.
Right. Yeah. In defense of her husband, I think maybe his basic point was that the test score is the most important thing, and I guess you would probably agree with that.
Right. Okay, I see. So
I think he was saying. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So was it ACT versus SAT?
He was referring. She did say ACT in the question, but I'm just giving a more liberal interpretation of his point of view, which is that the test score is the most important thing.
And you know what? I absolutely agree that it's not fair. You know, I've done this for 10 years. I don't agree with it as a homeschooling mom, that when you teach your child all this amazing stuff, it ultimately comes down to that test score. And I'm with you. But you know what? That is the game they play. And I tell you, you know what? Unfortunately, you have to play their game. What you have to do is basically treat the SAT or these tests as separate than your curriculum. You know, you tell your children this is really a game to beat to get scholarship money. It's not a reflection of how smart you are, and it's not a reflection of how, you know, of what you've learned in school. It's really a reflection of how well you can take the test. And, you know, I didn't make up the rules, they did. You know, I just show you how to play their game. And you're right, I don't agree with it. It shouldn't be fair, but like I said earlier, the reason why colleges do that is because a 4.0 at one high school is not the same 4.0 at another high school. And the only way they can compare your child, let's say your homeschool child, who has taken very rigorous courses, versus maybe some other student in public or private school who's just kind of been, breezing through and doing the minimum but has the same GPA. The only way they can do that is to level the playing field by a test score.
Right.
So that's why they use it.
Okay, great. Okay, so Pam has a daughter who took a lifeguard saving class and will begin working as a lifeguard this summer. Does she get credit on the transcript for the class?
You know what? For a homeschooler, yeah, I think you could use that for an elective. Was it like a full semester class? I guess that was a big thing.
Yeah, she doesn't say. It was a summer. It looks like it was a summer lifeguard saving class. Okay,
if it was all summer long and it's like equivalent to like a class, and certainly I would definitely include that in as an elective. If it was more of a short term, then maybe more you add it in as extracurricular activities into their portfolio.
Okay. Now Kim has a question that might apply to some folks, as I know we kind of mix and match our educations, our kids' education when we're homeschooling. Kim asks, if you go to an umbrella school that is accredited but don't take all of your classes there, do you think it's better to use their transcript or a traditional homeschool transcript?
Well, if they're going to allow, if they allow you to add in your stuff in with theirs, that's great. If they don't allow you to add it in, then I would use your own. That way you can put their umbrella information as well as your own stuff. Because what you do want to do is you do want to include all the classes that they've taken, not a partial transcript, because then it's going to look like they didn't do as many classes as they really did. So first I would check to see if the umbrella school would let you put in your homeschool stuff. If not, then just do your own and add their stuff in with yours.
Okay, great. Rachel wants to know, I have a gifted child that will be entering college early. What do you suggest for these type of children? When is the youngest? Oh, you did answer when the youngest they can take the SAT is, right, or ACT?
There is no age limit. So
there's no age limit.
And I taught kids as young as 10 years old. So, and you can actually be an adult and take the SAT. So a lot of kids even graduate high school and they're out a year or two, and all of a sudden they decided they want to go back to college. So the great thing is you can go back and do it any time. I've had many students get full rides who had been out of school a year or two and then gone back and taken the test and did very, very well. So yeah, there's no age limit. But I will.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, what I do want to recommend, because I have a whole seminar about the PSAT. One of the things you want to realize is when your child takes the PSAT, they can certainly take it in 9th and 10th grade, but the junior year is when it counts for scholarships. So if they're going to be going for that National Merit Scholarship, it's going to count in the junior year. You want to make sure that coincides with when they graduate, because you might be graduating your kid at 16 and they're just going into the junior. They would have been going in the junior year, but they're graduating. If you're thinking about getting some full scholarships, you definitely want to check into making sure you do the PSAT.
Okay. What is Cherie would like to know, what is the best way to identify dual enrollment college classes on my transcript, honors or AP or something else?
No, it would. For the high school.
For the dual enrollment classes, how would you designate those on the transcript?
I would designate them as an honors class because they are college level classes, and you can notate that. But also keep in mind too, when they get the college credit for it, you want to put that on the transcript as well. So when they're entering college, it notates any AP credits or any dual credits, dual enrollment credits. Make sure that's on there as well.
Okay. And then on this, kind of related to this, Heidi asks, how do you weigh CLEP and dual enrollment classes on the transcript? Should they be, well, you just answered how they should be noted on the transcript, but do you give it a different weight?
How do you weigh them? Well, you weigh them, the class themselves or the credits. I guess that's the difference, because CLEP classes are really more of just, you just get it's a placement test. It's not really, you don't necessarily get credit for the class, you get credit for the college hours. Dual credit, they give you credit for the high school and for the college. So if you want to signify it as being a class, then certainly you want to, dual credit shows class for college and class for high high school and college. But the CLEP are really just more tests that you just take, showing that you know the subject.
Okay. Pam wants to know, instead of taking AP classes, my daughter's taking community college classes. Isn't that just as good?
Well, if she's already taking community college credit, but she's not necessarily getting dual credit for it. Okay, well, it's just as
but
good.
She's saying, yeah.
Oh, okay, she's saying that it may not be giving her credit for high school as well. Okay, so then you can just you'll just be putting in the college credit for that. Because if they're not going to give you the dual credit, then you really can't count it for high school unless it's actually a dual credit course. But you can take the college credit that they give you and add that to your transcript.
Okay, I think her question was, is it instead of taking AP, what about taking community college classes? Isn't that a better way to go?
Maybe dual versus AP, maybe more the question. I think it goes back to more than likely the AP classes are going to the credit will transfer to college. Dual credit courses may or may not transfer. So there's more emphasis or weight on AP courses versus dual credit because sometimes it doesn't transfer. Best thing to do, of course, is to check out those websites, College Transfer and then transfer.org, because those can tell you right off the bat whether they're going to transfer or not. So I guess it comes down to, if the ultimate goal is to get college credit, then the AP courses will probably get credit for it when they take the test. Dual credits may or may not transfer.
Okay.
And AP courses are harder.
Okay. Mandy asks, regarding having too many college credits before going to college and possible scholarships, don't you just apply as a freshman and after acceptance into the school then send the credits?
Well, it depends. If they know that, if there's a way for you not to show them the credits, but if let's say, for example, if you've already turned in and gotten, like, you got to realize CLEP and AP courses are created by the College Board. So those are the same people who have who write the SAT and PSAT. So they have a record of your scores already. So you're going, when you send your scores in, they're going to know that. So if there's a way to not show them that you have the credit, I guess if you just don't tell them, I mean, they may ask you. So I don't know if you can hold those back or not. That's a really good question. Because I kind of think there's the best of both worlds. I think the key is to certainly get into college and get some scholarships, and maybe once you're in college, maybe then clap out of some classes that you don't want to take, so that you don't have to worry about your scholarships being nullified. But the thing is, the College Board does already know your scores, your credits, so you have to keep that in mind. Okay.
How are you doing on time, Jean? Because I know we've gone well over what we said.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just whatever you want to do.
Okay, well, let's take a few more. Okay. I'm having to scroll down through, the various interruptions we had, like when we changed audio. Okay. See, Carrie asked, what is all the information that needs to be collected on the spreadsheet for volunteering? Is there a copy that we can see somewhere?
Yes. Again, I have that in my book, but if you will email me, I will send you that, Jean@collegeprepgenius.com. But basically, when you create the spreadsheet, you really just want to notate the location or the place that your child volunteered, keep a record of who their supervisor was, notate the hours they worked, put a little box there for, make sure you check off that they got a letter of recommendation. And of course, like I said, many times you can actually count the driving time too as well. So pretty much, you want to, if they want to contact somebody or they want to make it, see if you actually did that, they will have that person to contact.
Right. Okay. And how early would you start? Rosina asked, what age would you start tracking the volunteer work?
We actually started. We actually entered in middle school stuff as well. A lot of people wait till they get to the high school, and then all of a sudden the counselors are looking, you need to get in like 70 hours of volunteer work. Very difficult once you get to high school because you've got so much going on. Definitely, anything that they've done in high school, put that in there. And we notate it for middle school, but what it shows is a lifetime of community service, not just something that you had to do when you got to high school, but that you really, been doing this for a long period of time. So I think anything earlier is totally fine.
Okay. And lots of folks, some folks here with gifted kids, if a child, Lynn asks, if a child is in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade and are doing high school level work, e.g. Algebra 1 geometry, do you add this to the transcript, and how?
Yes.
You do?
Yes,
Okay.
you do. You do. You put it on the transcript, you will put 8th grade or 7th grade, whatever it is, and it's considered an honors class, and you can still get the credit for it. So even though you took it in middle school and not necessarily officially in high school, you can still put it on the transcript, add the credit in that they got, half credit or credit, whatever, and it's considered an honors class. Anytime a student does higher level classes at a younger age, that's how you would notate that.
Okay. And does it affect the 4 recommended credits of math that they're supposed to get during high school?
No, because now they've already got early math.
So they've already got it.
Yeah, they've already got their math credit. So let's say they did Algebra 1 or Geometry or something in middle school. Yeah. So now you've got your math. Because you're still going to add it in as having, 4 maths or whatever. And some people do a subject transcript where you list by subjects, not necessarily by grade. And that's an option too as well.
Okay. Kim says, I thought it was best not to take SAT or ACT more than 3 times if applying to most competitive schools. Is that not true?
It's kind of a myth because colleges are going to take the highest scores anyways. And even some of the top tier schools might have you send, all the scores in. But even if you take it a lot of times, it shows improvement is what it does. That actually doesn't work against you. And a lot of people have thought that over the years, that don't take it more than a couple times because colleges will look at you funny, but that's not true. You just keep taking it until you get the desired score. And since colleges go up nationally on their rankings based on the test score, they want you to give them their highest scores because ultimately it makes them look good. Your child does that, yeah.
Right. Okay. Alicia asks, how do you qualify for talent searches in 6th grade?
It's at the end of 6th grade.
It's at the end of 6th grade when you do it?
You qualify at the end of 6th grade for the 7th grade talent search.
Okay.
And the best thing to do is Google, like the Duke KIPP letter is probably the most prominent one of all of them. I mean, I've had kids who've gotten Johns Hopkins and Stanford and Northwestern, all those, but probably Duke is the main one that most people think about when you think about a talent search. But the best thing too is to go to their website, and they give complete details on how to qualify, how to be nominated, what you need to do. So. And they even have there's even talent searches for younger kids at 4th and 5th and even 8th and 9th. But the 7th grade one is the main one that the colleges look at.
Okay. And maybe 2 more questions, Jean?
Sure.
Okay. So Olga asks, so do you recommend middle schoolers to take the Iowa Stanford test every year versus submitting a portfolio? Benefits, disadvantages? Are you there? Jean? Oh, dear. Looks like we lost Jean.
Here.
Oh, you're still there?
I'm here. Okay. The Stanford Iowa type tests are more of a measurement to see where your child's at, what grade they're in, and are they on track. And I think they're a good way, one of them is timed and one of them is not. I think it's a good way to get your kids used to taking tests because ultimately they're going to be doing that the rest of their lives, taking tests. So there's nothing wrong with doing those tests if you want to do them every year. They're not mandatory for the portfolio because the portfolio really is more of a culmination of everything that you've pretty much done in high school. So they're more for your benefit. I find that the Iowa and Stanford are more for a parent's benefit than anything. I mean, I think they're good, but I think it kind of helps you as a parent to see that your child is on track or not.
Okay. Okay, one more question. Susan asks, what is a reasonable expectation with all the suggestions, community service, summer plans, etc.? What's the reasonable expectation to have in regards to the student initiating the activities versus the parent initiating and planning the activities?
Well, as our kids get older, the more independence they want, the more responsibility they get. And so I think, you give, what is the saying? You give teenagers responsibilities, but don't trust them. Ultimately that's our goal, is to make them a very self-reliant, self-governed person in society. And so I think that you have to kind of, give them some responsibility, a little bit of responsibility, and see what they do with it, and then you can give them a little bit more. If they're going to do the congressional award, to where, like the volunteer, all that stuff counts toward the program, then they're the ones who actually are going to be doing, basically all the planning. And it does fall back onto them. And so I think that, every child is different, and every parent knows their own child. And I think you have to kind of give them a little bit and see what they do with it. And ultimately, you as a parent, you probably have other students that you have to school and life and home and everything. And so we do want to raise our kids to be responsible and to be independent. So give them a little bit and see what they do with it, and then give them a little bit more. And ultimately, hopefully, they're self-governed and they start doing it on their own. They take their own responsibility, which is what we want anyways, because when they get to college or out into the world, mom's not going to be there telling them what they need to be doing. They have to do it on their own.
Right.
So, yes, I think that's great. That's what we ultimately want for our kids anyways, is to be a blessing out in the society and to be productive, and to be discipled and pointed, on the right direction. And so just start them out as they've been doing, and most parents out there are doing an amazing job anyways. They've done that since the kids were little, and just giving them a little bit more and a little bit more. And then, of course, when they get to high school, they kind of, teenagers, again, they kind of tend to be a little crazy sometimes, with hormones and everything. But we still have to realize that they're still growing and they're still maturing, and they might let us down. But ultimately, if we just keep doing what we've been doing since they were little, then they're going to be going the right direction.
Okay. And then I am going to slip one more question in because it has to do with the webinar special. So Lynn asked, today's price is $79 for the DVDs plus the 2 books, or for the DVDs?
No, DVD set. That is the DVD and the textbook and the workbook. It's
all three.
The whole program. Yes.
DVDs, the textbook, and the workbook, all for $79. Yes. Cool.
That is
okay.
Correct.
Well, listen, Jean, this was a fabulous webinar. You did such a great job. I'm so appreciative, and I know our audience is too. And I think all of you who were tuned in, there's a wealth of information here, and Jean has offered to take your questions through your website, Jean?
It's in my email.
Or through your email, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's so great. Thank you so much. And
well, thanks, Brett, and thank you, everyone, for listening. I appreciate it, and if I can help you any other way, let me know.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.